I trusted my daughter with my $2 million savings. Now she begs me for loans. That evening, even though the restaurant was packed, but I could feel the silence at our table like a wall. My daughter Vanessa pushed her untouched salad around her plate, avoiding my eyes. Finally, she looked up and said the words that would change everything between us. Mom, I need to borrow $50,000. It's urgent. I put down my fork slowly, my hands beginning to tremble. For a moment I couldn't speak. This was the same daughter I'd trusted with $2 million of my life savings just 18 months ago. The same daughter who had promised me it would be safe, that her investment firm was the best place for my retirement money. Vanessa, I said quietly, where's my money? She looked away, her face flushing red. That's different, Mom. That's tied up in investments. This is for something else. I felt something cold settle in my chest. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments section where you're listening to my revenge story from. I want to know how far it has reached. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 24 months ago, I was living a simple, happy life in my paid-off house in Denver. At 64 years old, I'd finally retired after 40 years of teaching middle school English. My husband Patrick had passed away 3 years earlier, leaving me with the house, some insurance money, and his pension. Combined with my own savings, I had just over $2 million. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough for a comfortable retirement. I'd planned everything carefully. I would travel a little, spend time with my grandson Marcus, and maybe finally write that novel I'd always dreamed about. Vanessa was my only child, and I was so proud of her. She'd graduated from business school, married a successful lawyer named Kyle, and worked at a prestigious investment firm in Chicago. They lived in a beautiful townhouse, drove expensive cars, and always looked perfect. Every time I visited, I felt grateful that my daughter had achieved so much. One evening, Vanessa called me with excitement in her voice. Mom, I've been thinking about your retirement savings. You're keeping most of it in regular savings accounts, right? I confirmed that yes, most of my money was in a standard savings account at my local bank, earning minimal interest. Mom, that's such a waste. You could be earning so much more. My firm has investment options that could double your returns, maybe even triple them. You're losing thousands of dollars every year. I hesitated. I'd always been careful with money, maybe too careful. Patrick used to tease me about keeping cash in envelopes like my grandmother did. But Vanessa sounded so confident, so professional. I don't know, sweetie. I'm not comfortable with risky investments at my age. Vanessa laughed, that light, dismissive laugh she'd developed in her 20s. Mom, these aren't risky. They're specially designed for retirees. The firm I work for manages billions. We have clients much older than you. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa kept bringing it up. She sent me brochures, articles about inflation eating away at savings, and charts showing how much I could earn. She even had Kyle, her husband, call me. Mrs. Patterson, Kyle said in his smooth lawyer voice, Vanessa's firm is one of the most reputable in the country. I've reviewed their track record myself. Your money would be in very safe hands. Finally, I agreed to meet with Vanessa and someone from her firm. We met at an expensive restaurant in downtown Denver when Vanessa flew in for the weekend. The man from the firm, a silver-haired gentleman named Vincent, had a warm smile and spoke in reassuring tones. He showed me projections, talked about secure portfolios, and promised that my principal would always be protected. Mrs. Patterson, I understand your concerns. At your age, preservation of capital is key. We're not talking about gambling your savings. We're talking about smart, conservative growth. I looked at Vanessa, who was nodding encouragingly. My daughter wouldn't steer me wrong. Would she? I signed the papers 3 weeks later. $2 million transferred from my safe, boring bank account into Vanessa's firm's management. Vanessa was there for the signing, beaming with pride. Mom, you're making the smartest decision of your life. In 5 years you'll thank me. You might even have enough to buy that beach house you always talked about. For the first few months, everything seemed fine. I received monthly statements showing my portfolio's performance. The numbers went up and down, but overall there seemed to be growth. Vanessa called regularly to check in, always asking how I was, how Marcus was doing in school, whether I'd started planning any trips. I did take a trip, actually. I went to Italy for 3 weeks, something I'd dreamed about for decades. I walked through Rome, Florence, and Venice, taking photos and journaling every day. When I came back, I felt truly blessed. Retirement was everything I'd hoped it would be. The first warning sign came about 8 months after I'd invested my savings. I tried to log into my investment account online to check my balance before booking another trip. The website wouldn't load. I tried several times over 2 days, thinking it was a technical issue. Finally, I called the customer service number. After being transferred 3 times, a representative told me my account had been restructured, and I needed to contact my account manager directly. When I called Vincent, he didn't answer. I left messages. He didn't call back for a week. When he finally did, his voice had lost its warm, reassuring tone. Mrs. Patterson, yes, there have been some changes to how we manage certain accounts. Your daughter Vanessa can explain everything. She's been updated on all the modifications. Modifications? Nobody had told me about any modifications. I called Vanessa immediately, my heart starting to pound with worry. Mom, don't panic, Vanessa said when I finally reached her. They're just reorganizing some accounts for better efficiency. Your money is fine. Actually, this is good news because the new structure will give you even better returns. But something in her voice sounded off, rushed, like she was reading from a script. Vanessa, I want to see detailed statements. The online portal isn't working, and I need to know exactly where my money is. There was a pause. Mom, you're being paranoid. Do you not trust me? After everything I've done to help you. The guilt hit me like a slap. She was right, wasn't she? This was my daughter, my own child. Why was I doubting her? I'm sorry, Connie. I'm just not used to not being able to see my accounts whenever I want. Vanessa's voice softened. I know, Mom. I'll have Vincent send you detailed reports. Everything is fine, I promise. Trust me. I wanted to trust her. So I pushed down the worry and told myself I was being a paranoid old woman. 3 more months passed. The detailed reports never came. Every time I asked, Vanessa had an excuse. Vincent was on vacation. The accounting department was backed up. There was a computer system upgrade. Meanwhile, I noticed other changes. Vanessa stopped calling as frequently. When we did talk, she seemed distracted, always in a hurry to end the conversation. She canceled 2 planned visits, claiming work emergencies. When I suggested I visit her in Chicago, she said their townhouse was being renovated, and it wasn't a good time. I tried to brush off my concerns, but they kept growing. I couldn't sleep well. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, my mind racing with questions. Where exactly was my money? What were these modifications? Why couldn't I access my own accounts? One night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, looking at photos of Vanessa as a child. Smiling, innocent, holding my hand at her elementary school graduation. When did things change between us? Then came the phone call that confirmed my worst fears. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was in my garden planting tomatoes. My sister Helen was visiting from Seattle. When my phone rang and I saw Vanessa's name, I almost didn't answer because my hands were covered in dirt. But something made me pick up. Mom. Her voice was tight, controlled. I need to talk to you about something important. I wiped my hands on my jeans, my heart suddenly racing. What is it? There's been a situation at work. Some investments didn't perform as expected. The market has been volatile, and well, your portfolio has been affected. The garden seemed to tilt around me. What does that mean, Vanessa? How affected? Another pause. You've lost about 30%. But Mom, this is temporary. Markets recover. In a few months, maybe a year, everything will bounce back. 30%. $600,000 gone. I couldn't breathe. Helen grabbed the phone from my shaking hand and demanded to speak with Vanessa. I could hear my sister's voice rising in anger, but I couldn't focus on the words. $600,000, the money Patrick and I had saved for 40 years. The money I'd planned to leave for Marcus's college education. Just gone. When Helen hung up, her face was pale with fury. Dorothy, something is very wrong here. Vanessa was evasive about everything. She couldn't give me straight answers about where your money is invested or why you can't access your accounts. We need to get a lawyer. But I wasn't ready to believe my daughter had betrayed me. There had to be an explanation. Markets did go down sometimes, didn't they? Maybe Vanessa was telling the truth, and I just needed to be patient. Let me talk to her in person first, I said. I'm going to Chicago. Helen insisted on coming with me. We booked flights for the following week. Vanessa wasn't happy about our surprise visit. When we arrived at her townhouse, she answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair uncombed. The elegant, put-together daughter I knew looked exhausted and stressed. Mom, Aunt Helen, this really isn't a good time. But we pushed past her into the house. What I saw inside shocked me. The beautiful furniture I remembered was mostly gone. The living room that had been decorated like a magazine spread now had a single couch and a folding table. Boxes were stacked in corners. Vanessa, what's going on? I asked, looking around in confusion. She closed the door slowly, not meeting my eyes. Kyle and I are separating. We're selling the townhouse. I'm moving to a smaller place. My heart sank further. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. Why didn't you tell me? She laughed bitterly. Because you have enough to worry about, apparently. Because every time we talk now, you're interrogating me about your investments. We sat on the single remaining couch, and the truth started to come out in pieces. Vanessa and Kyle's marriage had been falling apart for over a year. Kyle had gambling debts. Vanessa had been covering for him, using joint funds to pay off his creditors. When that wasn't enough, she'd started making desperate investment decisions at work, trying to earn quick returns to cover Kyle's losses. And my money? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Where is my money, Vanessa? She started crying, her carefully controlled facade finally cracking. I put it in high-risk investments. I was sure they would pay off. I was going to fix everything before you ever knew there was a problem. But the investments failed. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was trying to help Kyle, and I thought I could make it work. Helen stood up, her voice cold. How much is left, Vanessa? Vanessa couldn't look at us. About 800,000. The rest is gone. I don't remember much about the next few hours. I know Helen was shouting. I know Vanessa was crying and apologizing. I know at some point, I walked out of the townhouse and just kept walking, block after block through Chicago's streets, while Helen frantically tried to keep up with me. $1.2 million. Gone. Not lost in a market downturn like Vanessa had initially claimed. Gambled away to cover her husband's debts and her own desperate attempts to fix the situation. My daughter had betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. When I finally stopped walking, I was in a park by the lake. I sat on a bench and watched the water, feeling completely numb. Dorothy, Helen said gently, sitting beside me. We need to call a lawyer. Tonight. I nodded slowly. My sister was right. This wasn't just about family anymore. This was a fraud. But even as I agreed, part of me still couldn't believe it. This was Vanessa. My baby girl. The next 6 months were a nightmare of lawyers, investigators, and painful revelations. It turned out Vanessa hadn't just mismanaged my money. She'd forged documents, created fake investment reports, and lied to her own firm about where she was directing funds. When her company discovered what she'd done, they fired her immediately and started their own investigation. Kyle had filed for divorce the moment the truth came out, claiming he'd known nothing about what Vanessa was doing with my money. My lawyer said we could potentially sue him too, but he'd already declared bankruptcy because of his gambling debts. There was nothing to take. The $800,000 that remained from my original $2 million was frozen in accounts while investigators tried to trace where the rest had gone. I couldn't access a penny of it. I was living on my pension, and the small amount of savings I'd kept in my original bank account, about $30,000. Vanessa was charged with fraud and embezzlement. She faced up to 15 years in prison. I had to testify before a grand jury about what had happened, sitting in a cold room and telling strangers how my own daughter had stolen from me. Through all of this, Vanessa sent me letters. Long, rambling letters full of apologies and explanations. She was sorry. She'd made mistakes. She'd been under so much pressure. She'd thought she could fix everything. She never meant to hurt me. She loved me. Could I ever forgive her? I couldn't read them anymore after the first few. Helen would open them, scan them, and tell me if there was anything actually important. There never was. Just more apologies and excuses. Marcus, my 12-year-old grandson, stopped speaking to his mother entirely. He was living with Kyle's parents now, confused and hurt by everything that had happened. When I visited him, he asked me questions I couldn't answer. "Grandma, why did Mom do this to you? Doesn't she love us?" The legal process dragged on for almost a year. During this time, I had to make devastating changes to my life. I couldn't afford to keep my house anymore without access to most of my savings. The property taxes alone were more than my monthly pension. I sold the house where I'd lived for 35 years, where I'd raised Vanessa, where Patrick and I had built our life together. I moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of Denver. It was clean and safe, but it wasn't home. I packed up decades of memories into boxes, gave away furniture I'd treasured, and said goodbye to the garden I'd lovingly tended. My neighbors, the Hendersons, who'd lived next door for 20 years, cried when I told them I was leaving. "We can't believe Vanessa did this to you," Mrs. Henderson said, hugging me tight. "That girl always seemed so sweet." Sweet. Yes, Vanessa had seemed sweet. She'd seemed like a lot of things that turned out not to be true. The day of Vanessa's sentencing arrived on a cold morning in February. The courtroom was nearly empty except for lawyers, a few reporters, and me. Helen sat beside me, holding my hand. Kyle was there too, looking uncomfortable in a suit that seemed too big for him now. He'd lost weight, looked older. We didn't speak. Vanessa was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She'd lost weight too. When her eyes found mine, I saw her face crumple, but I looked away. I couldn't afford pity anymore. The judge, a stern woman named Victoria Brennan, reviewed the case with clear disapproval in her voice. "Ms. Patterson, you held a position of trust, both professionally and personally. You violated that trust in the most egregious way possible. You stole from your own mother, a retired schoolteacher who worked her entire life to save that money." Vanessa's lawyer stood and made a plea for leniency, talking about his client's mental state, the pressure she'd been under, and her previously clean record. Judge Brennan listened to everything with a neutral expression. Then she asked Vanessa if she had anything to say before sentencing. Vanessa stood, her chains clinking. "Your Honor, I know nothing I say can undo what I've done. I destroyed my mother's trust and her financial security. I've had a year to think about my choices, and I'm ashamed every single day." She turned to look at me directly. "Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I just want you to know that I understand now what I took from you. Not just money, but your peace, your retirement, your future. I'm so sorry." Her voice broke on the last word. Something in my chest cracked, but I kept my face neutral. Judge Brennan delivered her sentence. 8 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 5. Additionally, Vanessa would have to pay full restitution once she was released and able to work. The remaining $800,000 would be returned to me immediately. After the sentencing, reporters tried to ask me questions in the hallway. How did I feel? Did I forgive my daughter? Would I visit her in prison? Helen pushed them away, and we left through a side exit. In the car, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not for Vanessa, but for everything I'd lost. Not just the money, though that was devastating enough. I'd lost my daughter, my trust in family, my sense of security. I'd lost the retirement I'd planned, the future I'd envisioned. She got off easy, Helen said bitterly. 8 years for ruining your life. But I shook my head. She'll live with what she did forever. That's its own prison. The $800,000 was released to me within a month. It was something, but it wasn't enough. Not for the retirement I'd planned. Not for the beach house dreams. Not for Marcus's college fund. I'd have to be very careful with money for the rest of my life. I didn't visit Vanessa in prison. I couldn't. Every time I thought about seeing her behind glass, talking through a phone, I felt physically ill. She continued to write letters. I continued not to read them. Helen thought I was being too harsh. She's still your daughter, Dorothy. And she's genuinely sorry. But sorry I didn't pay my bills. Sorry didn't give me back the years of savings. Sorry didn't erase the betrayal. 6 months after Vanessa was sentenced, something unexpected happened. Marcus called me, his voice nervous. Grandma, can I come stay with you for a while? Dad's getting remarried, and I don't really like his new girlfriend's kids. Of course I said yes. My grandson needed me, and I needed him too. He moved into my spare bedroom, and suddenly my small apartment felt like a home again. Marcus was 13 now, tall and quiet, dealing with his own pain about his mother's actions. Having Marcus changed everything. I had a purpose again. I helped him with homework, made him breakfast, and attended his soccer games. He made me laugh with his dry sense of humor, and kept me company during long evenings. We developed routines and inside jokes. Slowly, we both began to heal. One evening, about 3 months after Marcus moved in, he asked me the question I'd been dreading. Grandma, do you think I should write to Mom? I put down the dish I was washing and turned to look at him. That's your decision, sweetheart. She's your mother, and you have every right to have a relationship with her if you want one. He nodded slowly. But you don't visit her. It wasn't a question. No, I don't. Are you ever going to forgive her? I thought about that for a long moment. I don't know, Marcus. Some things are very hard to forgive. But that doesn't mean you can't. Your relationship with your mother is separate from mine. Now we arrive at the moment I told you about at the beginning. 18 months after Vanessa was sentenced, she'd served enough time to be eligible for a work release program. She got a job at a nonprofit, was living in a halfway house, and was slowly trying to rebuild her life. That's when she called and asked to meet me for lunch. I agreed, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe some small part of me still hoped for closure. We met at a casual restaurant near my apartment. When Vanessa walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked older, harder somehow, but also more genuine than I'd seen her in years. We made awkward small talk for a few minutes. She asked about Marcus, and I told her he was doing well in school, playing soccer and making friends. She looked pained but didn't ask if she could see him. Then she asked the question that stunned me. Mom, I need to borrow $50,000. It's urgent. For several seconds, I couldn't respond. I just stared at her, wondering if I'd heard correctly. You need to borrow money? I finally asked. From me. Vanessa's face flushed, but she pressed on. I know how it sounds, but please hear me out. I have a chance to invest in a business opportunity with some people I met through the work program. It's a legitimate business, Mom. A cleaning company. They need partners to help expand, and this could be my chance to make something of myself again, to start earning real money so I can pay you back faster. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Vanessa, where is my money? She blinked, confused. What do you mean? You got the $800,000 back. Exactly. I got back $800,000 of my original $2 million. You stole $1.2 million from me. And now you're asking me to give you more. She looked down at her salad. That's different, Mom. That money is tied up in your retirement accounts. This is a loan. I'll pay you back with interest. This business could really work. I stood up slowly, placing my napkin on the table. People at nearby tables were starting to notice our conversation, but I didn't care. Vanessa, do you have any idea what my life has been like for the past 2 years? I had to sell my home. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment on a fixed income. I can't afford to travel anymore. I can't help Marcus save for college the way I planned. I eat carefully and budget every purchase because I'm terrified of running out of money before I die. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Mom, I know. I'm so sorry. That's why this business opportunity is so important. If it succeeds, I can pay you back everything, not just what the court ordered. I shook my head in disbelief. You haven't learned anything. You're still looking for shortcuts, for quick schemes to fix your mistakes. You want me to gamble more of my limited savings on your judgment? The same judgment that destroyed my retirement in the first place. Mom, please. Vanessa reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I've changed. I'm different now. Prison taught me so much. I just need one chance to prove it. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw someone I didn't know anymore. Maybe I'd never known her. No, Vanessa. The answer is no. I won't give you $50,000. I won't give you $50. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences. Just like I'm living with the consequences of trusting you. I picked up my purse, placed money on the table for my uneaten meal, and turned to leave. Mom, wait. Vanessa called after me, her voice desperate. If you won't help me, who will? You're my mother. I stopped and looked back at her one final time. I was your mother when I trusted you with everything I had. I was your mother when I worked double shifts to pay for your college. I was your mother when I believed your lies for months while you stole from me. But being a mother doesn't mean being a victim forever. I walked out of that restaurant and didn't look back. Helen was waiting in the parking lot, having insisted on driving me in case I needed support. How did it go? She asked when I got in the car. She asked me for money. Helen's mouth fell open. She what? $50,000. For a business opportunity. My sister started laughing, a bitter, shocked sound. The audacity. The absolute nerve. But I wasn't laughing. I was thinking about Marcus waiting at home. About the small but stable life we'd built together. I was thinking about the $800,000 I had left, and how carefully I'd have to manage it to last the rest of my life. Most of all, I was thinking about trust, and how once it's broken, it might never be whole again. I learned that being a good mother doesn't mean sacrificing everything, especially not to someone who doesn't value the sacrifice. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. And I learned that my worth isn't measured by how much I give, but by how much I respect myself enough to keep. Vanessa calls sometimes. I don't always answer. Marcus writes to her now, and I support that. He needs his mother even if I don't. As for me, I'm building a new life with what I have left. It's smaller than I planned, but it's mine. And nobody, not even my daughter, will take that from me again.